Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast Creatives. Today, we're stepping into the world of indie filmmaking, raw storytelling, and artistic rebellion, all through the lens of one of the most influential independent filmmakers of all time, John Cassavetes. Joining me is actor and old friend Taurean Cavins-Flores, who's bringing Cassavetes to life in the upcoming stage production, Independent, John Cassavetes and the Birth of American Independent Filmmaking. We'll talk about the process of stepping into the mind of the cinematic trailblazer, the raw emotionality of Cassavetes' work, and what it means to carve your own creative path. If you're an actor, filmmaker, or just someone who loves fearless storytelling, this episode is for you. Okay, let's dive on in. How you doing today, Taurean?
I'm doing really good, man.
It's good to see you.
You too.
We've been talking about this project of yours for, I don't know, probably like a year now. You've been working on it, so I know a lot about it at this point.
Yeah.
But not everybody knows even about John Cassavetes.
Yeah.
So at the start here, you've done so much research.
Yes, I have.
For this. Tell me, who is John Cassavetes?
1950s through the 80s until he passed. He was a filmmaker, actor, director, writer. But what he did was basically pioneer independent filmmaking in America. And yeah, in the 1950s in America, that was unheard of. And, you know, going outside of the studios and doing it on your own. Because, you know, this was the, quote, golden age of Hollywood, you know? So studios kind of owned everybody that worked for them. You know, this was a time when actors were under contract at studios, you know, be like, we'll sign you on to do 5 movies at a time. We don't know what they'll be, but you're signed on to do 5 movies, whatever we want you to do. So the fact that he went outside of the studios and made his own stuff was just blew everybody away. Kind of remarkable. Yeah.
And did he come from a theater background? How did he get into the world of film? Was he more of a writer, a stage performer, stage director?
He was, he started out as an actor. Yeah. So he was kind of a lost soul. Didn't exactly know what he wanted to do. His father and brother were like genius minds, you know, very scholarly, all of that. And John was not. And so there's a line in the play where his mom is kind of, you know, lashing out at him saying, you flunked out of college, you mope around the house. When are you going to stop acting like a bum? And he ends up running into some friends who are signing up at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts to be actors. And so basically he was like, well, I'm going to be an actor. And his mom was like, no, you're not. But he did. And so, yeah, he went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts only after he auditioned for Strasberg at the Actors Studio 2 or 3 times. And he got turned down. This is a very interesting story. He got turned down and turned down again. So he went back, I believe it was 3 times. He went back a 3rd time and said he had a piece to do for his audition. But it was a scene, so he was going to do it with his friend. And so he's auditioning in front of Strasberg. And Strasberg, like, loved it. I love it. You're in. And Cassavetes was like, well, I don't have money. And he's like, doesn't matter. I'll give you a scholarship. And just so you know, this whole scene was made up from a play that doesn't even exist. So he did this to just kind of like spite Strasberg. And Strasberg bought it. But that's the kind of guy that Cassavetes was, you know. He was just like anti-establishment, anti-studio, just all of that. And so, and then he was like, yeah, it's made up. So bye. And then he ended up going to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
That reminds me of a story I heard Henry Winkler tell about.
For our younger viewers, that's the Fonz.
That's the Fonz. When he was auditioning for Juilliard, he went in with a Shakespeare piece. Mm-hmm. And when he got up in front of the panel, he completely forgot his monologue. Mm-hmm. He blanked. So he made up a Shakespearean monologue on the spot, and kind of the same reaction. They said, "Oh, we really like that. That was kind of nice." Probably a little bit more obvious with Shakespearean that you're making it up off the top of your head.
Yeah.
Iambic pentameter off the top of your head is not easy.
No.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So, how many Cassavetes films did you watch in preparation for this role? Spoiler: in this project, you are playing John Cassavetes.
I am, yeah.
How many?
A couple other people.
How many of his films did you watch in preparation?
All of them. So I started out wanting to watch them as I got to them in the book. But like I said, I'm a slow reader, and then taking notes on top of that. So I was just like, I'm just going to watch them whenever I can. And started with Shadows. I wanted to go sequentially, but that didn't exactly happen. But yeah, Shadows, Faces, Husbands, Opening Night, and then there are some more. But then Woman Under the Influence was the one I watched most recently. And it was great to just kind of see his growth. You see Shadows and you're like, okay, this is it looks very independent, you know? Yeah, when you have that idea in your head, you know?
Yeah.
Very independent, but artsy, and it's got, I don't want to say artsy. He hated that, art films. He thought they were pretentious, but it's just a very honest film. About, just all his films are just honest about things that we may not necessarily know about, but we're curious about. Anyway, so Shadows comes off as independent, but then you see his growth, and they start to look more like movies, but not in a bad way, not in a bad way at all. But Woman Under the Influence is incredible. And that's like the centerpiece of that movie is Gena Rowlands, his wife. And she's just, she's a goddess. She's a powerhouse in that movie. So anybody who hasn't seen that, see that. It's incredible. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the relationship between John Cassavetes and his wife.
Tumultuous, to say the least. Not really in like a dark kind of way, but he was very stubborn and opinionated, yada yada, you know. And he called himself like a street kid from New York, right? Which, he was. So you know that wording conjures an idea, an image of a person, and that was a lot of him. Jenna was very refined and elegant, but she didn't put up with anything, So, she didn't roll over for John at all, There's a line in the play when John says, I knew I'd met my match, because she wasn't going to put up with any of his stuff. So there were hard times because John took his work so seriously, and when he was shooting a film, it would just take him over. Like he was in a trance. It's all he would be doing. And, in another relationship, you might be like, oh, that's kind of neglectful. But Jenna loved him so much and supported him in everything that he did that it wasn't exactly neglect. It was like, okay, he's going to make a movie. We both know what's going to happen. This is what it is. And that's what he would do. Not to say that there weren't problems because of that. A big part of it, because of the time period when nobody was making their own films, he would have to, what he would do, he would basically go actor direct for, a studio or a network or something like that, make money and use that money to, make films and pay people back who helped him make the films, Okay. So there was a lot of time in his life when he was in debt. So they loved each other so much, but some of the hardship also came from, being in debt to these people who helped him on the films and stuff like that. So there were a lot of things that made it bumpy, but they just loved so fiercely that it worked, that it just worked,
And the construction of the show, it is a 2-person show, correct? There's 2 actors
Yes.
in this?
So yeah, more or less. Yeah. So I played John, and Madeline Brashear, MJ, plays Gena. And the whole setup of the play is there was a moment in John's life. He made a movie called A Child is Waiting with Burt Lancaster and Judy Garland, produced by Stanley Kramer, who was like the biggest producer in Hollywood at the time. Around the same time, It's a Mad World came out and all of that. Huge movies, huge producer. And so he got John to come direct A Child is Waiting for him. John got really close to the material, was really passionate about it, was a subject he cared about. And Stanley Kramer felt, we'll just say it wasn't Stanley's vision. It wasn't what Stanley wanted, right? So John put all of himself into this movie. And long story short, he sits through the edit. That's not his edit. And after the screening ends, he goes up, grabs Stanley Kramer by the throat, and says, "Take my name off the picture." Lets him go, and then walks out, right, to the back alley of the studio. And Kramer follows him, and they get into a fight. And this is according to Cassavetes. They get into a fight in the back alley, and John thinks to himself, all right, I knew I had a choice to make. If I hit you, I'll never work again, But if I don't hit you, I'll never breathe again. And so he hits Stanley Kramer right in the jaw and drops him, and then freaks out because he just hit the biggest producer in Hollywood, right? Runs across the street to this Chinese restaurant on Sunset Boulevard and goes into the bathroom and just is puking his guts out and just reevaluating his life. And that's the play. The entire play takes place in that Chinese restaurant bathroom.
Oh, wow.
And it's just John reevaluating his life. So, when Gena comes into the play and everything, it's like me reflecting on my life, and then she's kind of like this beautiful specter that comes in, and we have a little conversation, and there is, and so that's kind of how she's involved in the play. She's kind of like my solace within this whole freak out in this bathroom.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you specifically prepared to play John Cassavetes outside of the research, obviously. What was your mental state going into it, and how did you find ways to get in character?
Sure. So I teach as well, and I tell my students, it's good to have technique to fall back on, to use out of your tool belt. But sometimes a piece, you'll just read it and it'll hit you and you just kind of get it. And once you do, ride that wave. And that was what happened with me with Independent. John gave it to me. I read it. And I was crying after reading it. I was just this makes so much sense. So, there you go. I didn't have to do a whole lot of emotional preparation or anything like that. I just kind of just got it in my body. But, John Cassavetes was a character, to say the least. And so he has a very interesting voice that if you don't do it right, it could come off as kind of cartoony, So I watched a lot of video, just listening to his voice, especially in the time this play is set, because it does get a little deeper as he gets older, but that's not when the play is set. So New Yorky, kind of high pitched. It could go cartoony if you do it wrong. But then a big thing is he was just always smoking. He almost always had a cigarette in his hand, right? And so I bought some cigarettes, and I didn't I didn't need to smoke them or anything, because it wasn't about that, and you shouldn't smoke anyway. But it's like in his gestures. There's so many, interviews and stuff where he has a cigarette in his hand, and it's just part of his gesture,
Oh, yeah.
And so I would go through the play with a cigarette in my hand, whether he had a cigarette in the play or not, and just have it and let it feed the gestures, and then got rid of the cigarette and still had it feed the gestures. Because if you watch a footage of him, the way he gestures his hands, it's still like he's holding a cigarette.
Oh, okay.
It's just like in his body.
Yeah.
It was really interesting, because it played such a big part in kind of enveloping myself in that, just having a cigarette all the time. Yeah.
And then as far as the artistic philosophies of Cassavetes, when you were reading the script, what resonated with you the most? What similarities do you find between yourself and John?
So much, so many. John is very much, can we please have some respect for what we're doing? Can we please have honesty in what we're doing? And belief that we're doing something as actors and filmmakers and playwrights. We're doing something that's important. And in the play, there's a line where he says, he's talking about acting and how worldwide communication in a world so incapable of understanding. Mm-hmm. And so he had these hard beliefs that just we need to be human and honest with ourselves and honest with everybody else. And can we please stop just bowing down to this corporate money grubbing thing that is Hollywood and the industry? Can we please stop that? And I especially right now, I feel that so much, and it's like, don't get me wrong, like the blockbusters have their place and everything like that. I like a good popcorn movie too, like you do. I know you love a good popcorn movie, but there is a point where it's now so many of them just kind of seem like there's just no shame, and it's very just obviously money grubbing. And it's like, and they know exactly what they're doing. They're not trying to make art, and Cassavetes was like, let's make something honest. I keep referencing the play, but I think it's appropriate. So there's a moment in the play when there's a scene in the play when they're on a talk show, and they're talking about shadows and how, they went about shooting it. And they're talking about how they went into it with the script only 3/4 of the way done. And the talk show host is like, well, 3/4, why? And Cassavetes says, well, I think it helps the performances. We figure it out together a couple days before, and then that's how we shoot it. And he's like, I think it helps. And then the talk show host says, well, doesn't that, mess with the film's message? And I just kind of fly off the handle. And I'm like, no, this is not a movie with a message. Shadows is an honest movie. It's like, we're not, and he says, we're not, we're creating art. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe the purpose of art is propagandizing,
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not to say that art shouldn't have a message, because I think it should. But just the fact that he's like, no, there's no message within this movie. It's an honest movie. It's a human movie. We're not hiding behind anything. We're not trying to trick you into anything. This is just people. Here you go. People just bearing it all, whether it's pretty or not, it's real. And I think that's It hits me hard, Joe.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a lot of similarities with Cassavetes. Is there any aspect?
Yeah, you know me.
Is there any aspect of his personality that you don't gel with? Something with his personality that scares you potentially?
With his personality that maybe I see within myself?
No. That you don't see within yourself. Something that you're like, well, that's. I don't recognize this in myself.
Yeah, sure. I don't drink and smoke as much as he does. I don't smoke at all, and I don't drink as much as he does. And we were actually we were joking around, and only half joking because we might do this. But if we were able to like sell drinks at the theater in the lobby, we would have drink specials, you know, we would have the Gena, you know, and that would be something fancy like a French 75 or something like that, you know, or an aviation. And then we'd have the Cassavetes special, which would just be like just 4 ounces of scotch.
In a scotch.
Yeah. 4 ounces of scotch. And then we looked up on Amazon. They actually sell straws that look like cigarettes.
Oh, okay.
So we would do that and then just like throw a cigarette straw.
Yeah.
I think it'd be very funny.
Another thing that I saw, I recently went to a tiki bar where they made me a tiki drink, and they took a cinnamon stick and they took a lighter and they burned the end of that, and it smokes like a cigarette.
Yeah, we could absolutely.
Kind of looks like a blunt though, so I don't know if
I don't. Yeah, no.
The idea of what you're going for.
No, he was not a pothead, but he drank and smoked a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. That's not part of me. But the whole. I mean, like I said, you know me as your friend, and I'm very. Can we just be honest and real?
Yeah.
For like 2 damn seconds, please. Yeah, it's, you know how frustrated I get.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. How do you think Cassavetes would fare in the landscape of the film industry today? How do you think? Yes, there are so many blockbusters, but there is also such a great opportunity for independent filmmakers. If we plopped him into 2025, how do you think he would feel?
I think he would. I think there would be less walls for him to break down. I think in a way he would thrive nowadays. But the spooky thing is that the themes in this play from the 50s and 60s, the themes in this play are more pertinent now than they were 10 years ago even. You know, we feel that there's been loss of respect for real stories, honest stories about people. There's been loss of respect for that, and it's a problem. It really is a problem. There's some great movies out there that are about people. You know, there's some great independent stuff, but that doesn't mean that it's not hard to make. It is so hard to get, you know, approval on anything of any importance. You know, it was that way back in the 50s and 60s, and it's that way now. There's a lot more outlets now for independent film. So yeah, it's going to thrive a little more than no outlets at all back in the 50s, you know?
Yeah.
But just because there are more things out there now that are independent and have something to say, it doesn't mean that it's safe. It doesn't mean that kind of expression is safe. In this day and age, there are people still trying to slap that down. Mm-hmm. There are people still trying to slap that down, and all they care about is making a buck. And they don't give a crap about anything that doesn't make money.
Yeah.
You know, money. Most of it just comes down to money. So, you know, to everybody out there listening and watching this, when you see something independent, when you see something that is outside of the norm, appreciate it. You know, like really think about the appreciation you should hold for it. because it was damn hard to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like he would probably find a home with a place like A24.
Yeah,
nowadays.
A24, similarly, you know, Neon. I'd like to see him make a Neon film. He'd probably have, I mean, no, not probably. He would have his own studio. He would have his own, yeah, and that's what it would be. He wouldn't work for, definitely not a big studio, and he wouldn't.
He could do a Marvel. He could do an Avengers.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about what he did. He kind of despised it all, but found a way to use it. You know, so you know, for some reason, he did keep getting hired in Hollywood. So he would make his own movies, run out of money, and then go make something studio and just use all the money, you know, for his next movie and supporting his family. And it was just a cycle of that throughout his whole life. He just kept doing that and doing that. Like he's in Rosemary's Baby, and he hated that. You know, he's very good and grounded. He's great in that movie, but he hated doing it, you know, because he felt that there was no individual expression for himself. Yeah.
Interesting. Tell me, what has it been like collaborating with your buddy John Babcock on this?
It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. We both adore acting, filmmaking. We're both just a couple of cinephiles, and he brought this to my attention. We were having a late night dinner at the Marietta Diner, and we were talking about movies, of course. And he brought up this play that he wrote, and I was like, that sounds amazing. And he had done it back in 2017 or 2018 and went through a couple performances. And I was like, do you want to like do it again? This sounds incredible. And he's like, yeah, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, let's do it, please. I'm like, send me the script. This sounds amazing. And, you know, that's when I read the script and I cried and I was like, we got to do this. And so that's when producing this thing started. You've been hearing about it for a year. It's been in production for like probably 8 months already. It's been crazy.
I haven't seen you produce a theatrical piece on this level.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're learning a lot
I'm
in
learning
the process.
I'm learning a lot.
A lot you like and a lot you don't like.
Yeah.
What about the process of being a producer has been the most eye-opening? Let's say that.
Well, I was really like it's a different experience than when you just have to memorize your lines. You know, give me that all day. That's great. Nothing to worry about. But now it's like, okay, I got to worry about you know, checking out the lighting board and the lighting setups at the theater, which we did last weekend, and it's all just a mess. So my lighting designer is gonna have to fix that, and you know, just like, you know, the locking down the theater itself, 4 months.
Wow.
And I was just, and it shouldn't, but I was like the middleman between negotiations, you know, of like what each theater needs, because Authenticity Theater is producing, and then we're holding the show at Limelight's Black Box downtown. And so, you know, they both have things that they need, and so they don't all line up together, which is fine because they're different entities. But I'm in the middle of it all, being like, can we do this or maybe this, or like let's meet some middle ground here. And there were a lot of, sure, okay, we can do that. And then there were a lot of, no, we're not moving on that, which I understand. But it's just been, so it's not just learning lines, it's dealing with that stuff. And, you know, casting, we only needed to cast one person, you know, but that's another added thing. That was a really fun day, though. That was a really fun day. I gotta imagine. Yeah, it was really fun. But yeah, it's just, and then, you know, things seem to keep arising, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's another problem.
And you're only now a little over a month away from opening.
Yeah. So, I think of it as almost 2 months, because then that makes me feel better. Like, oh, okay, 2 months, not just over a month.
Yeah.
We open last weekend in April, and we go through the first weekend in May. So it's 6 performances total. But yeah, we are right there. So on top of everything else, we're in rehearsals now too, which are going great. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind, man. Yeah.
Yeah, you've put so much into this. Yeah.
I'm sorry. And then there's the social media stuff that I got to take care of too. And that's, if I had money, I would hire a social media expert, but I don't. So we gotta do that all on ourselves too. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. You understand why those social media managers are one position. It's one person's job to handle.
Yeah.
Speaking of social media, where can people go to follow this journey, follow the story?
It's it's going to be, I'm going to be posting some things on my own Instagram account. And then I think we're going to make a page for the show itself. And the show itself it's called Independent. That's the name of the show.
That's not the full name of the show. You made
the poster. Yeah, you made the poster. The original name of the show is Independent. And then somebody within all of this thought that we needed a what do you call that? A byline?
Like a subtitle.
Subtitle, yeah. So it's Independent, and then the sub is Independent. John Cassavetes and the birth of American independent filmmaking. Yeah, it's a lot to fit on a poster.
It was a lot to fit on the poster. And another challenging part of the poster was I thought you guys were challenging me to see how many times we could put the name John on a poster. Because you had John Cassavetes several times. You had John Babcock and then John Carucci,
who's our stage manager and lighting designer.
So there's
a
whole team of Johns working on this picture.
Yeah, and
it takes a village of Johns.
It does. And the play takes place in the John of a Chinese restaurant. So
oh, there we go, another John.
Yeah.
So summing it all up. Yeah. When does it open? Give us that location one more time.
The last weekend in April, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 25th, 26th, 27th, and then the first weekend in May, which is 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Friday and Saturdays will be at 7:30 p.m. And then everybody loves a matinee, so Sundays will be at 4 p.m. And this will be at Limelight Theater in downtown Atlanta.
Amazing.
Yeah, the Black Box.
Go in the show notes. I'll obviously put any information about the show, the website, the Instagram, all the Instagrams that Taurean personally handles that you can go check out his work, give him some hearts, give him some likes on all of that work. We're gonna end with one question that is, if you could ask John Cassavetes one question about his work, what would it be? What would you ask him?
I think I understand him on a very emotional level. So for a moment, I was going to say, where does all this, the thirst for honesty and truth come from? The want for that, where does that come from? But I think I understand that. I think I would want to ask him just how all of that hunger and thirst for truth and honesty feels to him. How does the burden of wanting to be so honest and truthful, or rather explore truth and honesty on a human level, how do you feel like carrying that around on a daily basis? That's what I would ask him. Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited to see the show myself. All of this research that you've been doing, I know that it's all going to be paying off for you. And kudos to you for everything that you and John Babcock are putting into this. I encourage everybody to go see it. It's gonna be a really, really wonderful show. again, please check out all this information in the show notes. Are there any final things that you would like to pass along to the listeners?
I think, like I said, next time you go see something that's a little off the beaten path, maybe an A24 film or something like that, just really take a second to sit in it and appreciate it. And stay through the final credits, the end credits too, just so you have the whole experience, because you're missing out on a great score probably if you don't stay through the entire credits. But I, selfishly, I'll say, come see this show, because it's, like I said, the themes in it are more relevant today than they were even 10 years ago. It's an important show to see. It just is. It's something that you need to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an actor. You don't have to be a movie lover. You don't even have to be a theater lover, but we're all human, and we all, like Cassavetes, hold this, thirst and hunger for truth and insight into, however cliche this sounds, the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to hear the things that are in this play. It'll do you some good. It will. And it is very fun as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Taurean, for being here today and for chatting about your project. Maybe we'll have to have John in to talk a little bit more.
I would love that.
We'll get all three of you in.
Yeah, that'd be great.
To talk about the project.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much. It's great seeing you. Great chatting with you as always.
Me too.
And I can't wait to see all of your hard work pay off.
Thank you.